Hey, what's up, guys? Ches Critta. So I hope you all had a happy 4th of July. Mine was pretty cool, barbecue. But I want to talk about a couple things. First of all, how the American people could take power back if they were motivated. And but before I get to that, I want to talk about a conversation that I had with a friend of mine. And the discussion got to the point where, oh, you make YouTube videos and all this, and, what do you talk about? And I said, look, I'm talking extremes. I am an extremist, okay? The data mining centers and all this stuff, I'm the person that they're probably after. People that are speaking this anti-government rhetoric. And lo and behold, I turn on the radio today, and the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, run by Napolitano, big sis, basically said anyone that's concerned about their freedom is a potential terrorist and extremist, and anybody that thinks that the government's overstepping their bounds, and anyone that's paranoid about any of this stuff, anyone that believes in conspiracies, well, that's great. So basically, anyone that does any of these activities is a potential terrorist. Yet, no word of jihadists. Well, I thought we were all supposed to be fighting these jihadists. I mean, aren't they the bad guys? Wasn't this what all this propaganda was from? Or now is it just terrorism in general? There are terrorists everywhere. Be afraid. Ooh, be very afraid. And it's just absolute bullshit. Now, I want to get to this conversation that I had with a buddy of mine. So I was talking about, I say some pretty extreme stuff online, but freedom of speech, I'm going to exercise it. Period. I am. And it got to the point where I was talking about police encounters and how to de-escalate, and there's no de-escalation. Not that I advocate violence against the police, but when all other options are exhausted, and kind of like Kennedy said, when you make peace impossible, violence is inevitable. And he said, whoa, man, And this is a guy, just to let you know, he thinks exactly like me, but when push comes to shove, he'll just kind of, back down a little bit. Which, look, I understand. He's got, a closer family unit than I do, so he's probably got some stuff to worry about there. But he said, I wouldn't talk about that stuff online, man. And I said, well, why? It's freedom of speech. He said, yeah, but, eventually, it might not be freedom of speech, and, you'll be targeted. And I said, then what exactly are we doing here? Is that what it's come to? Has it come to a right exercised? Is a right lost? I mean, this is the big deal with the open carry thing here in California. This same friend of mine told me, hey, I wouldn't do the open carry thing, man. Why? They'll probably just end up banning it. And he was right. He was absolutely right. They ended up just banning it. So now you can't open carry anymore. And it looks like they're setting up all the rhetoric that they need to ban the freedom of speech. Your Fourth Amendment's already toast. Once speech is gone, I don't know, the Second Amendment, I'm sure they'll figure out some way. I mean, they kind of botched the Fast and Furious thing, but that was going to open the floodgates to massive amounts of gun control. The point is that, look, if you can't exercise these rights, or you're afraid of losing these rights, to your freedom of speech to express yourself, then you never had them. They were never rights to begin with. So going back to the barbecue, we read the Declaration of Independence. We read it, like passage by passage, and then, did a little bit of interpretation with it. And it was great, and everyone was like, oh, yes, don't you feel patriotic about all this stuff? And then, I guess when you walk out the front door, and it's like, oh, okay, bye, that was a great barbecue. You put on the shackles, your leg irons, and that's it, right? All right, now keep your head down. You're out in public now. There's no more freedom anymore, no freedom of speech or expression, and you got to be, make sure you follow all the rules. It is so frustrating to me that the people think this way. And would the Founding Fathers have done this? I don't know. I mean, if you take the same people and put them in an incremental situation, maybe. But this is my idea. This is how you would ultimately take power back. I think that this is the most powerful, absolute way. You could literally do this in 1 week. If you had passion. And I will say, if the American people had passion. And I don't think that they do. But I want to preface this with the Occupy Wall Street and why that utterly failed miserably. And it's probably going to come back and they'll get crushed down again. But you saw the kids in UC Davis, I'm sure. They were all sitting down. And the cops said, you can't do this. You're not allowed to protest here. And they were sitting down and they all got pepper sprayed, right? The Occupy Wall Street crowd. You know, something like 600 people got arrested while they're going on a march. Oh, you can't protest anymore. It's freedom of speech. Get out of here with that antiquated bullshit. Then that reminds me, I talked to someone else today, and they said, what'd you do for the 4th of July? I said, well, we read the Declaration of Independence. He's like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. Did you learn anything? I'm like, well, you know, I've read it many times. You know, kind of like, oh, that's kind of quaint, that antiquated document. But this is the attitude of the people. They think that these things don't matter, therefore they don't. I mean, you know, I think, therefore I am. You know, if I think I'm free and act upon it, then I am. If I pretend I'm free and I don't act upon it, I'm not. But I digress. Getting back to how you would take back power. You would need, let's say 3% of the American population, roughly 9 to 10 million people, okay? And you would organize them in every single city capital across the nation, okay? This has got to be on a work day, okay? So these people would probably have to take off from their jobs, which would also benefit the movement. I talked about this briefly before, but basically, no signs, no rhetoric, you don't say anything at all, okay? So the plan is, what you do is all these people get up and they stand. They stand for an entire day, and they do absolutely nothing but stare in silent protest. Now, the reason for this is, how would the police come back at this? Now, see, the police in the Occupy Wall Street, they said, well, these people were getting violent and somebody threw a bottle, and all of a sudden now everyone's getting arrested and pepper sprayed and billy clubbed, and hey, you can't film this, that's obstruction of justice. But literally, if everyone stood shoulder to shoulder, you know, arms crossed, just quietly, the police would say, disperse, you don't say a thing. You don't throw anything, no signs, no shouting, nothing. You would take the power away. And with that many people, it would have to be at least that many, outside of every single capital, you would instantly take power away from the system. And that's what really, really bugs me. Because everybody has this attitude, and they go, oh, well, they're going to give you a beatdown. You don't want to stand up. You know, you'll feel the pain that way. And who is they? Who really is they? I mean, let's take the people at the very top, you know, your Rothschilds, Warburgs, your Bilderberg people. You take all the government and, you know, maybe some of the most corrupt, evil government officials. Most of the lower tiers are all just pawns, and they're just using the system for their own benefit. You know, I don't think that they truly believe in the principles that they're following. But, hey, you know, as long as we can get a bunch of free money from the taxpayers, why not, right? Who's going to blame them? You know, if that's an option. I mean, if that's all you know your whole life. But the idea of this is that they are so few. They're so few. Yet they are feared by the masses. You know what I mean? Like, even good people that have decent incomes, the whole bit, they fear these they people. And that's what's so frustrating about this. It really is. I mean, imagine that you're on an island and there's, say, 1,000 slaves, and then 5 people with guns, okay, controlling everything. I mean, how long is that going to last? Because that's the direction that we're headed in. It really is. I mean, they want everyone monitored all the time. So you're going to be a de facto slave, just without the physical shackles. You know, but the modern day whip is, you know, the billy club and get in line and do this and that, and the camera and surveillance and all this stuff. So how long would that situation last? And maybe it needs to get to that point. Does it need to get to the point to where the government just takes an attitude of the beatings will continue until the morale improves? You know, or is that evil plan of, hey, let's get every single last person on welfare, and then once we do that, once you're completely dependent on us, then there is no resistance. I mean, what are you going to resist against? We'll just take everything away from you. But it ticks me off, and I told my buddy, and this is probably something really stupid to say, but if things keep going on the trajectory that they are, the odds are that I'm not going to die of old age. Okay, you know, if you catch my drift on that, meaning that I'm not going to give up my Second Amendment. I'm not going to give up my right to free speech. And if someone comes down and tries to take these rights away, which the founders wanted, they put it in the damn document, no man can take these rights away. Okay? They are inherent within themselves. You know, quote unquote, from their terminology back in the day, God-given rights. Self-evident truths. No man can take them away. And if they try, I value these rights more than I value anything. Because without freedom, you have nothing.